Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year and welcome back to Hold My Nuggets Incorporated for your 2019 NFL Week 17 post-game analysis show, the conclusion of the regular season, and we are onward into the postseason, and I hope your team was able to make it to the playoffs. Mine was not. We're currently in the Death Note, and we'll kick off the post-game analysis with my team entering the Death Note as the Baltimore Ravens defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers rather handedly, I might add, 28-10. And I'll say this much: Pittsburgh's offense very anemic. Nothing really positive had been said. Baltimore's offense didn't really do too much for the most part, but it was enough to defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers team, which offensively, outside of that one drive where Benny Snell was able to punch it into the end zone, they did a lot of nothing. Baltimore had 304 total yards to Pittsburgh's measly 168. On the ground, Baltimore ran for over 200 yards and broke a NFL record for the most rush yards by a team in a season. So kudos to them. Clinching, they already had clinched that number one, seed or in the AFC and home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the AFC. However, they did clinch the best record in the NFL. Nobody else is 14-2, and they capped off an 11 game win streak. So round of applause for Baltimore. From my estimation, the best team in the NFL. I wasn't really a big fan of what I saw from TJ Watt and Bud Dupree at the conclusion of multiple plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I found them in the backfield hitting RG3 for no apparent reason. It was very odd. The play could be all the way down there. RG3's getting hit. Very dirty. I'm not too sure why that was. I don't know if the plan was to rattle this man and perhaps, he'll throw an interception or make an errand play. I'm not too sure what the game plan there was, but I was not really a big fan of that. I'm all for big hits, but do it when it's warranted. Don't just assault a man, after the whistle or extremely late under the grounds of just hitting him. That's very odd. But a good victory for the Baltimore Ravens. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, better luck next year. As I said in the commentary video, as I said in the post game, it was a whole lot of Uncle Ben, or I should say, a lot of Spider-Man hoping to see Uncle Ben, because damn it, Ben Roethlisberger needs to be back, and apparently he has confirmed that he will be back next year. So for Steelers fans, we can only hope the defense, plays up to par, or I should say, plays to the same level that it did this year. Next year, and the offense, finds a way to revitalize and stay healthy, and then perhaps you can go and contend. But as far as I'm concerned, as I said at the top of the video, we in that death note. Next, the Buffalo Bills falling to the New York Jets. This game meant absolutely nothing for Buffalo. Knowing that they could not drop to the 6th seed, they cannot ascend to possibly the 1 through 4 because they've already lost the division with their loss against New England. So, from where they sit, this game meant nothing. So, you did not see too much of Josh Allen. He played, I think, one possession, and then Matt Barkley came in and started at quarterback stepped in and relieved Allen at quarterback for the remainder of the game and did virtually nothing. And we saw the Jets walk away with a 13-6 victory. More importantly for the Jets, this is a very good moral win because they've won 6 of their last 8 to close out the season. And as I said numerous times, had Sam Darnold been healthy, this team probably wins maybe 3 more games. And rather than ending their season 7-9, they could be 10-6. Perhaps in the postseason. So who knows what things will look like next year. They're retaining, Adam Gase. He's not going to be, written down the death note himself. So I'm going to be very curious to see how the Jets play next year. But great way to close out your season. Good momentum. 6-8. 7-9. I don't know why I said 6-8. 7-9. Way to close out your season. So good job to the Jets. For the Buffalo Bills, nothing really concerning. There was the injury to their cornerback. I am forgetting this man's name. He caught an interception, and then he got hurt on the play that he caught that same interception. So that was a bit concerning, and I know Sean McDermott did not want any of his guys to mess around and get hurt. I'm searching for this man's name right now. Levi Wallace, that's what it was. Yeah, and he got hurt, so that was a bit concerning. I'm not too sure what the availability for him in the playoff game will be. As far as I'm concerned, he did not put any weight down on that leg. So I'll find out by the time we do the pregame, just so we'll know. But from where I sit right now, I'm unaware at what his status will be. But regardless, good victory for the New York Jets. Much needed victory at that. So they'll close out the season on a high moral win, finishing winning 6 of their last 8. All right, next up, we had the Redskins fall to the Dallas Cowboys, a gang of necrophilia, 47-16. But of course, this meant nothing because the Cowboys needed the Eagles to lose to the Giants, and that did not happen. The Cowboys finished the only way that Jason Garrett's career in Dallas should finish, and that is 8-8. And Coach Clapp was on the sideline clapping it up in what should be his last game as the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. First and foremost, Dak Prescott had a very, very impressive season, but not enough to galvanize his team to make it to the postseason, because you saw 2 different times in which they've had 3-game losing streaks, so that is unfortunate. But on this particular game, you saw Zeke go over 100 yards, you saw Dak throw for over 300 yards, and Amari Cooper 4 catches, 92 yards. Very good game for the most part. For the Washington Redskins, Case Keenum pretty much playing for, the injured Dwayne Haskins. He didn't do too much, all right? He was a measly 18 of 37 for 206 yards, a TD and an INT. Did not do too much on the ground. Adrian Peterson ran for 78 yards, which I was happy about, but unfortunately he will not have another 1,000-yard season. So I'm curious to see what will happen next year for Adrian Peterson. Is he still going to be with Washington? Most likely, because you had back-to-back seasons where Darius Jice has been hurt. So who knows what they're going to do at the running back position moving forward. But for Dallas, that should be the story of this game. Missing the playoffs for the 6th time under Jason Garrett. So you have a ton of these, talented individuals on this roster. This roster, which coming into the season, a lot of people said this was a Super Bowl contending roster. In my opinion, they actually are. But the application of, what is done on paper now being brought onto the field was not, transferable this season. You've seen a ton of games in which they should have won, but they found a way to lose. You saw games in which they had leads, they blew those leads, and you saw situations, I think, for their 3-game losing streak where offensively they'll show up on the opening drive and they will disappear for the rest of the game. So they've got to figure out exactly what sort of team they want to be moving forward. But good victory for the Dallas Cowboys, I guess. But yeah, it's not the playoff berth, so I know you're feeling absolutely terrible about the season. All right, now Packers Lions down to the wire again. Aaron Rodgers able to pull another victory out of his gluteal cleft, and once again the Detroit and Green Bay game, divisional game that is, comes down to the toe of Mason Crosby, and yet another questionable call. All right, because you had a I believe it was when Rodgers was running down the sideline and he had gotten a hit and they threw the flag for... It was unnecessary roughness. Initially, I thought it was roughing the passer, but I knew that Aaron Rodgers was running. He wasn't in the backfield when he got hit. So, yeah, it was unnecessary roughness, and that was a very questionable call. I wouldn't have thrown the flag on that, but of course, I'm not an NFL referee. And ultimately, the Packers went down the field, and they put 3 points on the board, ultimately to win the game. Another crushing defeat for the Lions, who closed out the season 3-12. I honestly cannot recall if they won a game in the month of November and December. I do not think they did. And hell if I know if they actually did. It was a brutal close to their season. Losing Stafford really did them no favors. For the Packers, they just solidified themselves a first-round bye. First time they've had a first-round bye in a long time. So kudos to them, closing out a 13-3 season. I initially chose them to win the NFC North, and that is exactly what it is that they did. Now you'll find out who they're going to be playing against in the playoffs in 2 weeks. Well, I should say at the conclusion of this week, rather than in 2 weeks. They're just going to play 2 weeks from now. But regardless, big time win for them. On the ground, Aaron Jones, another 100-yard game, and Aaron Rodgers threw the football 55 times, which I did not see coming. But 2 TDs and 1 lone INT on a hell of a play made by the Detroit Lions secondary. But ultimately, this was another crushing defeat for Detroit. They have led in now, I believe it was 13 games they have led in the second half, and I think 9 of those 13, no, pardon me, 10 of those 13 they've led in the fourth quarter and ultimately end up losing. So that has got to suck. But a good victory for the Packers, and now, you know, they got themselves a first-round bye. All right, next, the Saints absolutely destroying the Carolina Panthers. Only thing that can be said for this game is kudos to Christian McCaffrey becoming the 3rd running back in NFL history to have 1,000, you know, season. 1,000 being rush yards and 1,000 being receiving yards. Only a feat met by Marshall Faulk and Roger Craig. So that's something that you can be proud about. But Carolina needs to figure out what the hell they want to do at the quarterback position. All right, are you going to bring back Cam? Are you going to try to roll with Kyle Allen? Maybe you're going to try out Will Greer. Are you going to go into the draft and go try to find somebody? Who knows what the hell they're trying to do moving forward. But they got the running back situation made. DJ Moore, I believe this guy's a very good, you know, receiver. Unfortunately, he could not play in the final game. But coming into, I believe it was week 17 or week 16, he was top 5 in the NFL in receiving yards. So maybe try to get this man much more involved. But they need to figure it out at quarterback. For the Saints, this was absolute necrophilia, as I said earlier, winning 42-10. They controlled the game all doggone day, 35-3 going into halftime. They simply could not be stopped whatsoever. Drew Brees must have saw the all-time NFL 100 team and said, whoa, you guys left me off? All right, bet. Let me show you something. And what he did, he went out there and he threw 19 of 30, 253 yards and 3 TDs. It seemed like this man didn't even have an incomplete pass, but he had 11 incomplete passes. You'd have never known. It was murder from the start. Jared Cook, one-hand catch. It was straight up necrophilia. I don't even know why the hell they decided to let this game even go into the second half. They should have came out there and said, yo, it's over. Their buttholes can't take any more abuse just to close out the season. Hell of a victory for the Saints. Unfortunately, because of the because of the San Francisco win, we will not see New Orleans with the first-round bye. However, this does give them an opportunity to get revenge on Minnesota for the Minneapolis Miracle this weekend in the wild card, as Minnesota will travel to New Orleans in the Bayou to take on the New Orleans Saints in the wild card. So that will be interesting moving forward. A good victory for the Saints. Titans and Texans. The Titans needing to win to get in. The Texans not really playing for anything. Now, if the Chiefs were to lose, the Texans can sit back, or I should say the Texans can now come to play and they can ascend to the 3 seed. But because the Chiefs had already won, the Texans said, we good, we gonna rest people. And that's exactly what happened. You did not see, you know, Deshaun Watson. You did not see too much DeAndre Hopkins. What you saw was, you know, they went out there with their backups and pretty much got creamed. A.J. McCarron was leading the charge for the Texans, but it simply was not enough. Why? Because that man, Henry, ran all over the Houston Texans. And you talk about closing out the season in style to solidify himself as the leading rusher in the NFL. Mans ran 32 times, 211 yards, and 3 TDs. Ryan Jack and Jill went up to Tannehill, 13 of 20 to 198 yards and 2 TDs as well. And you cannot forget A.J. Brown, 4 catches, 124 yards, and the TD. Absolute dominance from the Tennessee Titans. There was a point in which the game was tied up, but after that, Texans ain't stand a chance. And it was only tied up at like 7-7. So they did not stand a chance whatsoever. Tennessee owned it. They earned that final playoff spot, and I can't do anything but congratulate those guys for getting it done. I would hope that is my chocolate sponsorship calling me as we speak, because I've been saying, oh, Henry, for 2 years. All right, I can't just be over here screaming, oh, Henry, and I ain't getting no damn sponsorship for it. Because then at that point, people going to be thinking I'm participating in the Michael Sam Challenge. What you screaming another man's name like that for? Oh, Henry! You know, something might be wrong with you. Rainbow Pirate. Well, of course, we ain't talking about that right now. All right, but good victory for the Tennessee Titans clinching that playoff spot. Then we had the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Indianapolis Colts. And Jaguars finished their season in style, 6-10. Unfortunately, you know, they're not contending for any playoffs, but they won 38 to 20. Gardner Minshew on the day played pretty good. All right, so that's 27 of 39, 295 yards and 3 TDs. The ground game was virtually non-existent. But Minshew went out there and put on a show, man. And I felt like this is what that kid was gonna do. He wants to continue to be the starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they'll probably end up shopping Nick Foles, regardless of the fact they just signed this man to a gigantic contract. Well, not really gigantic. I think it was like $88 million. But the hell, $88 million is a whole lot of money. But when you see freaking Jared Goff is getting like 134, you think that's gigantic. Regardless of the fact, I don't know what they're going to be doing with Nick Foles, but I'll say this much: for the Colts and Jacoby Brissett, I think now you can start to question, hey, what are you guys going to be doing at quarterback? What do you believe in Brissett moving forward? I think maybe they should bring somebody in to try to put some heat under his heels, and that could probably try to motivate him to play a little bit better. Like, not that he's shitting the bed, but I think he just needs a little bit of competition to go out there and play extremely good football. Marlon Mack, I really like this guy. Return of the Mack, 2 TDs on the day, but still, you lost by 18 points. Hell of a job from Jacksonville, playing at home with that stink-smelling swimming pool in the stadium. Regardless of the fact, in this AFC South matchup, this was a good victory for the Jags. And once again, the Colts won 1 game in their last 5. They really could have been in the playoffs. They control their own destiny, and they pretty much screwed that one up. So good victory for the Jags. Charges, and now go. Charges, go. I should say, and now no charges. No, because they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, who needed a loss from the Lolly Lule Low in order to get the first round bye. And indeed, they did. In Kansas City, for the 2nd consecutive year, will have a first round bye. First and foremost, the only thing that really needs to be said for this particular game is not Patrick Mahomes, but Damian Williams taking a ton of Viagra, refusing to go down. On both of his touchdown runs, this man simply said, I did not want to touch the floor whatsoever. He was participating in the Jeffrey Epstein and the Saddam Hussein challenge. This man's legs did not touch the ground. Now, hell, his legs did touch the ground, because how else are you running? But his body did not touch the ground when his adversaries wanted them to. He stayed up at all times and was able to put the ball into the end zone on 2 different occasions. More importantly, Patrick Mahomes did not really kill his team, as he never really does, with a TD and also an INT. The INT was a very good play made by the Chargers. But regardless, this was kind of bittersweet, because who's to say if this is going to be Philip Rivers' last game? Nobody knows. On the day, Philip Rivers, 31 of 46, 281 yards, 2 TDs, and an INT. The run game from Melvin Gordon only produced about 46 yards from him. Austin Eckler also gave you, 46 yards. But the story is Philip Rivers. What is he going to do next year? Is he going to be returning back to Los Angeles? Is he going to be on a different team? We'll find out in due time. But regardless, whether this is his last game or not, hell of a career, brother. Hell of a career. You can't discount, what he was able to do on the field. Unfortunately, never made it to the Super Bowl, never had an opportunity to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. But he's had some great moments and great games. But for the most part, it was a decent, or I should say a very good career. I don't want to say it was a decent career. Man had a very good career. Unfortunately, didn't have too many Hall of Fame moments. So we'll see what happens with this man's candidacy in the future. But, if this is the last rodeo for him, as he stated in his post-game conference, he put it all on the line week by week, so he has something to be proud about. Next, but good victory for the Chiefs. Next, the Vikings and the Bears. I'll first start out by saying Matt Boone did everything in his power in that first half to try to give the Bears the W. All right, this man dropped the football that led to an INT. He fumbled on a toss play, also failed to get out of the end zone, giving up a safety, but he did turn it all around. He ended up running for 148 yards and also scored a TD as well, but it wasn't enough to stop the Bears from walking away with the W here. They close out their season 8-8. That's Chicago. That is, Minnesota has already clinched their playoff, and they will be going to New Orleans this weekend. But I'll say this much for Chicago, very disappointing season. I foresaw this happening. I knew they weren't going to be returning to the playoffs. They've got a ton of questions regarding the quarterback position. If I am them, I'm making a move for Cam Newton. I may make a move for Teddy Bridgewater. So you got to get somebody, pardon me, you got to get somebody at the quarterback position who can throw to an Allen Robinson, who can get the ball to a Trey Burton, who defenses feel afraid of having to play. There's no defense in the NFL whatsoever who got bulletin board material like, yo, we got to see Mitch Trubisky this week. Oh, this is going to be difficult. This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. There's no defensive coordinators walking into Chicago or prepping for Chicago with their hands on their foreheads in concern. The wrinkles starting to show up over here. They're losing sleep over Mitch Trubisky. Go and get yourself a quarterback, man. Get Trubisky the hell up out of here, man. 26 of 37, 207 yards, no TDs, no INT. David Montgomery over 100 yards on the ground. Allen Robinson, 9 catches, 71 yards. Get somebody like a Cam Newton. Get somebody like a Teddy Bridgewater. Hell, draft somebody or something. But Mitch Trubisky, he ain't it. Get him the hell up out of here. Good victory for the Bears, though. They needed that 500 season. Matt Nagy still, I don't believe he has a losing season. His first season with the Bears was last year. So, yeah, he does not have a losing season to my estimation. Patriots and Dolphins. This was interesting. I did not foresee the Dolphins walking into Star Foxborough and walking out with a W, because it's very hard to win in Gillette. But Ryan Fitzpatrick does not give a hoot. All right, he's beaten the Patriots on all 3 teams in the NFC East. Ain't that crazy? That's wild, man. So I'll say this much. His performance on the day, 28 of 41, 320 yards and a TD. Also, Devontae Parker, who's been murdering defenses all season long, 8 catches, 137 yards, and the run game was not even, it wasn't even on display for the Dolphins, but they continued to stay resilient. Their defense really impressed me. All right, holding Tom Brady under 300 yards, holding Sony Michel under 80 yards, holding the Patriots under 400 total yards. At that, in fact, the Dolphins outgained the Patriots 389 to 352. Who the hell saw that coming? I know they play the Patriots very well, at least one time per season, but that's usually done in, a Hard Rock Stadium. It's usually done in Miami, not in Foxborough. And hell, after getting stomped, I think it was 43-0, here they are winning 27-24, and Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down the field with under 5 minutes left to play and gives his team the lead. What a hell of an effort from the Miami Dolphins, man. Closed out the season 5-11, and remember when it was 0-10, or I should say 0-9, we thought this was the team that could mess around and go 0-16, and they closed out the season on a high note, man. Oh, but you messed up your tank. Well, it's all about competing. It's all about competing, and that was a hell of an effort by these guys to close out the season that way and dropped the Patriots to the wild card for the first time since 2009. The Patriots have never won the Super Bowl from the wild card before, so football fans around the nation are all, overjoyed and ecstatic about the fact that the Patriots will not have a first-round bye. So hell of a victory for the Miami Dolphins, man. Hell of a victory for the Miami Dolphins. Who the hell saw that coming? They also controlled the time of possession, 33 to 26 minutes. So that was a hell of an effort, man. Hell of an effort. Eagles taking on the Giants. This was a big win for the Eagles, and more importantly, statement win for Carson Wentz. 23 of 40, 289 yards and 1 TD. And also, what cannot be ignored is the role of Boston Scott. 3 TDs on this day. All right, 19 carries of 54 yards and those 3 TDs on the ground, plus 4 catches, 84 yards through the air, where we see there's no receivers for Carson Wentz. In fact, Carson Wentz is the first Eagles quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards. And on top of that, he's the first quarterback to throw over 4,000 yards and not even have a receiver that has over 500 receiving yards. So that is extremely impressive. But what about Zach Ertz? Zach Ertz is the tight end. You may be receiving the football. That doesn't make you a receiver. Technically, figuratively, you are. But literally, that's not your position. So, it is what it is. All right, but hell of an effort by those Eagles, and fly, Eagles, fly on your way to the postseason berth. And I said in the beginning of the season, they would represent the NFC East. And here they are, bringing my words to fruition. All right, for the Giants, hell of an effort to, try to keep pace. It was 17-17 at one point, and then the Eagles pretty much put the game away. All right, Daniel Jones through the air was 28 of 47, 301 yards, TD, INT on the ground. Saquon Barkley, 92 yards. Golden Tate with a sensational touchdown catch in the second quarter, I believe. But after that, virtually nothing. But hell of a victory for the Eagles. They definitely, needed this down the stretch. So good job by them. And now hosting the Seattle Seahawks next year. I said next year. Hosting the Seattle Seahawks this week in the wild card. If they were playing the Seahawks next year in the wild card, that'd be crazy. Whole year really got delayed. What kind of genjutsu is this? Somebody must have called up Dio and son pulled up to the NFL playoffs like Zawad. But regardless, let's go to Ohio. Who cares about the Ohio teams? We don't care. All right, does that rhyme? No, it doesn't. But I'll tell you what does. That L with the Cleveland. But that doesn't rhyme. Well, it's always happening. So I figured if you keep seeing it, it'll probably mess around and rhyme. And what I'll tell you what the Browns will be at the beginning of the year. What I'll tell you. I told you guys they would not be 500. 6-10. 7-9 at best, and here they are sitting at 6-10 to close out the season. Cincinnati getting their second win of the season, 33-23. Cleveland Pastries chef Baker Mayfield cooking up apple turnovers on 3 different occasions. He was 12 of 27, 279 yards, 3 TDs, but also 3 INTs. On the ground, Nick Chubb, 13 carries, 41 yards, did nothing. Jarvis Landry, 2 catches, 82 yards, and he had that 56-yard TD. Odell Beckham, 3 catches, 81 yards. He had his 4th TD on the year as well. But fun fact, Odell Beckham has the same amount of TD catches as Hunter Renfrow. So yeah, deal with that. For the Bengals, all right, the one bright spot they've had all season, Joe Mixon, 26 carries, 162 yards, and 2 TDs. Andy Dalton through the air was 16 of 28, 190 yards, 1 TD, 1 INT. And I heard through a little birdie that Andy Dalton doesn't want to leave the Bengals. I'll tell you this much, Andy, get the hell up out of there. Do not stay there. Go somewhere else and try to prove your work somewhere else. Do not stay in Cincinnati. This is a franchise that will not continue to grow. Or I should say will not grow. Hell, they haven't won a playoff game since 1990. These guys, apparently the front organization is comfortable with being mediocre. Leave, Dalton. Leave. I don't know where you want to go. Get the hell out of there. That's not where you want to be. But good victory for, the Cincinnati Bengals. They already have the number 1 seed all locked up. Or I should say the number 1 pick all locked up. So the conclusion of this game really did not matter too much. They outgained Cleveland, 361 to 313, and on top of that, they possessed the ball nearly 35 minutes to Cleveland's measly 25. So that was a hell of a effort by Cincinnati, and on top of that, they were 64% on 3rd down. You're not fixing to beat a team if that's their possession, if that's their percentage on 3rd down. So hell of a victory for the Bengals. And then Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Jameis Winston. Oh boy, first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 30 TDs and also throw 30 INTs. I need to understand, what is it with this man? What is it with him? Why is he like this? Why is he like this? And he throws the INT on the first play of overtime, results in being a pick 6 to lose the game. Classic Jameis. Classic Jameis. It's ridiculous. I don't understand it. Bruce Arians said after the season, he said, hey, if we had a different quarterback, I'm sure we could win a whole lot more. We're winning with Jameis. We definitely can win without Jameis. So I think that pretty much says that it's clipped for Jameis moving forward. So he's got to figure out what the hell he wants to do. Led the league in passing. All right, I think he was number 2 in TDs. But my Lord in heaven, this man turns over the football all day long. Makes absolutely no sense for the Falcons. Closing out the season yet again at 7-9. Julio Jones, 7 catches, 78 yards. Not too much of a run game from Devontae Freeman. And if I'm the Falcons, I'm exploring trying to find myself a running back. Matt Ryan, 30 of 51, 313 yards and a TD. Now, for the Falcons fans, there's a lot of confusion because Arthur Blank has said he's going to retain, Dan Quinn moving forward. So I'm sure some people are not happy about that. But, good victory for the Falcons. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as I said multiple times, if Jameis doesn't throw as many picks, you cut the picks in half, this team is probably 11-5. Probably 11-5 in the postseason. Jameis just got to fix himself, man. Kid got a load of talent. He's just interception, turnover, poppy. Get rid of the turnovers, Jameis can be something special. I don't know what coach has to do it for him, but maybe it's Bruce Arians, maybe it's not. Whatever the case may be, he's got to sort that out, man. Good victory for the Falcons. Next, the Raiders taking on the Broncos. And good Lord, the Raiders were losing this game for pretty much the entire doggone game. And then they found a small seam. And Hunter Renfrow was caught, had a magnificent pass down the stretch. And I think that ended up leading to a field goal. And then ultimately, Derek Vehicle took him down the field, connects with Renfrow for the touchdown this time. And when they went for 2, the ball got batted down. Classic ending for Oakland. All right, this was a team that was 6-5, could possibly, make a run and go into the postseason. And then they lost, I think it was 3 consecutive games. Tough break, man. Absolute tough break. They still had hopes alive for the playoffs because they needed Tennessee to lose. They needed Pittsburgh to lose. They needed the Colts to win. And then they needed to win themselves. But ultimately, none of that happened. Outside of Pittsburgh losing and also, outside of Pittsburgh losing, that was the only thing that they needed to happen that actually happened outside of, them having to go and win. But this was a good win for the Broncos. Definitely something that Drew Lock needed. On the day, Drew Lock was 17 of 28, 177 yards and a TD. Not too impressive, but definitely needed that morality, booster for him. So hopefully we'll see if he's the starter moving forward. I like the kid. I think he should. But for the Gruden Grinders, tough loss, man. Tough loss. And I said, I believe John Gruden is about 1 or 2 years away. And I said that last year. So I think he's probably about a year away. Get the right picks. Bring in some right, role players. And perhaps he can make this something special. But from where they sit right now, they're missing a couple other pieces, man. They just need a few more pieces. But good victory, for the Broncos. Next up, the Cardinals and the Rams. I'll say this: Cardinals and Rams game. It was tied up at it was tied up at 17. Yes, it was tied up at 17, and then the Rams pretty much said, "Yeah, we good. We just gonna leave with this W over here." Chandler Jones failed to get to the 20 sack range. Kyler Murray through the air was 26 of 42, 325 yards, 2 TDs, 2 INTs. Kenyon Drake was able to find the end zone, ran for 60 yards himself. Larry Fitzgerald on the day, 4 catches, 45 yards. Who knows if this is going to be the Larry Legend's last game in an NFL uniform. We'll see. I don't think there's any word regarding what he's going to be doing moving forward just yet. But Jared Goff, one of his better games of the season, 29 of 45, 319 yards, 3 TDs, and 0 INTs. If you did not know, Jared Goff, I think he's number 2 behind Jameis for the most turnovers since last year. No, pardon me. Second behind Baker Mayfield. All I know is it's those 3. I just know Jared Goff is number 2. But I know those are the top 3 when it comes to turnovers over the course of the last 2 years. On the ground, Todd Gurley, 68 yards. All right, and Cooper Kupp through the air, 7 catches, 99 yards, and a TD. Tyler Higbee, broke his streak of consecutive 100-yard games, but he had 8 catches, 84 yards, and also a TD. Robert Woods had a TD as well. A very good game, for the Rams. And I guess they close out their season strong. You're left with a W, 9-7, winning season. But they just got to regroup next year. I don't know what they're going to be doing regarding, with the cap and how many people they're paying and everything. So I don't know if they can make any moves to bring other people in. But they just got to play better football next year, and hopefully they can get an opportunity to return back to the Super Bowl. Consider this particular year like the 2000s Rams. But then again, they don't have the numbers that the 2000s Rams had. Whatever the case may be, it's a down season in Los Angeles, and better luck, next year. And last but not least, the battle for the NFC West. Seahawks losing to the 49ers. And remember, I said that Seattle will beat the 49ers twice this year. I said they would beat them twice in the regular season. Turns out that was wrong, because evidently Jacob, we don't wear Hanes, we wear Hollister, could not get across the goal line. But before I even get into that, woo-woo clitoris alert. Woo-woo, woo-woo clitoris alert. Who was that on? Pete Carroll. How the hell don't you have a play ready by the time you have a conversion on 4th down and sets you up at the 1? How do you not have a play ready? You have 40 seconds on the play clock. These guys got a delay of game. Ridiculous. Beast Mode came into the game. Beast Mode had to lead because they got pushed back to the 6, and then ultimately they failed to get into the end zone. I did not like the closing sequence of this particular game, but I'll say this much. It's like I said regarding Seattle. When people ask me about Seattle's hopes in the playoffs, I do not trust that defense. Because the 49ers jumped out to that 13-0 lead. For some apparent reason, Seattle did not go to try to get points at the end of the half. That was very bizarre that they elected to go and, take a knee and go into halftime. But when offensively in the second half, they started to get everything going and they kept scoring, their defense could not get them a single stop. All right, if you take a look at their second half possessions for the Seahawks, they get a stop, a 3 and out for the 49ers. Touchdown, Seattle. What happens? Their defense gives up a touchdown. Russell Wilson goes back down the field, gets a touchdown. What happens? Their defense gives up another score, touchdown. Then Seattle scores another touchdown. They finally get the stop that they needed, and then they go down the field and then they get stopped at the 1. All they needed was another stop. They could have possibly messed around and took the lead and forced, the 49ers to have to play catch-up. But that's not what happened. Seattle needs to fix their mental errors, man. Marshawn Lynch in his return game did not do too much outside of, I believe it was one drive on, I think it was like the touchdown drive, but it was 12 carries, 34 yards, and the TD. Travis Holman, 10 carries, 62 yards. But regardless, 49ers, they're the real deal. Number 1 seed. We'll see them next week. Most likely they'll be playing against Seattle. Seattle going on the road to take on, the Philadelphia Eagles. But then again, something about the Eagles, man. Who knows? But I still got Seattle winning that game. But you'll find out about that in my pregame, wild card analysis tomorrow. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been your NFL 2019 Week 17 post-game analysis show. I have been your host, the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, sagacious, conscientious, analytical, methodical individual, the Chiseled Adonis. Time to go get myself some water. I will see you guys tomorrow for the pregame.